Back in May 2016, Leicester City pulled off what many still call the greatest upset football has ever seen, lifting the Premier League title against all odds. Fast forward a decade, and the same club has slipped all the way down to the third tier of English football for only the second time in its history. What once felt like a fairy tale has taken a sharp turn into something far more troubling. So how did things unravel so badly at Leicester? The story really begins years before that famous title win. In 2010, the club was taken over by Thai businessman Vichai Srivadhanaprabha, known affectionately as Kun Vichai. Under his leadership, Leicester rose quickly. They earned promotion to the Premier League in 2014, pulled off an incredible escape from relegation in 2015, and then stunned the world by becoming champions in 2016. That momentum carried into Europe, where they reached the quarter-finals of the UEFA Champions League in 2017. But everything changed in 2018. Vichai tragically lost his life in a helicopter crash outside the King Power Stadium, a disaster that also claimed 4 other lives. The club was left not only grieving, but facing an uncertain future. His son, Ayyawat Srivadhanaprabha, stepped in to take charge, promising to carry forward his father's long-term vision of building a club capable of regularly competing at the highest level. He pushed ahead with ambitious projects, including a $100 million training facility and plans to expand the stadium to 40,000 seats. There were also ideas to grow revenue through new developments around the ground, like shops, hotels, restaurants, office spaces, and even an indoor arena. On the pitch, things still looked promising for a while. Under manager Brendan Rodgers, Leicester lifted their first ever FA Cup in 2021 and consistently finished in the top 8 of the league for 3 straight seasons. But beneath that success, problems were quietly building. After their title-winning season, Leicester had managed to stay financially stable by selling one major player each summer. That strategy kept them in line with financial rules while allowing steady reinvestment. However, in 2021, they moved away from that approach. With Rodgers working alongside recruitment head Lee Congerton, the club spent heavily on players like Patson Daka, Yannick Vestergaard, and Boubakary Soumaré, without balancing the books through player sales. That shift marked the beginning of deeper issues that would soon catch up with them, setting the stage for the decline that followed. On top of everything else, Brendan Rodgers was earning around $8 million a year, the highest salary ever paid to a manager in the club's history. That level of spending might have been manageable if revenues had kept growing, but the timing couldn't have been worse. Leicester had already committed to building their new training ground when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Construction costs shot up as materials became more expensive, turning what was already a major investment into an even heavier financial burden. Plans to expand the King Power Stadium had to be put on hold, but the damage didn't stop there. The club's ownership group was closely tied to King Power, a business built around global travel and tourism. With international travel collapsing during the pandemic, that revenue stream took a serious hit. Then came a moment that changed everything. In the 2020-21 season, Leicester City narrowly missed out on qualifying for the UEFA Champions League on the final day. It was one of those what-if turning points. Had they secured a spot, the extra income might have supported their aggressive spending. Instead, missing out left them exposed at exactly the wrong time, especially given how dependent they were on external economic conditions. The consequences showed up quickly. In 2022, the club reported losses of $92.5 million. Spending had spiraled, and by the 2022-23 season, their wage bill had climbed to an alarming 116% of their revenue. That's simply not sustainable. On the pitch, performances dipped badly, but the response was slow. Rodgers remained in charge until April, even though the team had managed just 7 wins in 29 games, despite having one of the league's biggest budgets. Relegation followed, and the aftermath only made things worse. That summer, 7 senior players, who had originally cost around 107 million combined, were allowed to leave for free as their contracts expired. Losing that kind of value without any return was a huge financial blow. Although Leicester bounced straight back to the Premier League the following season, it came at a cost. They did it with the biggest budget the EFL Championship had ever seen, while posting even more losses. That pushed them into breach of profit and sustainability rules. Under these rules, clubs are allowed to lose up to $105 million over 3 years, or $35 million per season. Leicester had gone well beyond that limit, and the financial strain was now impossible to ignore. Clubs in the EFL Championship operate under similar financial rules, but with tighter limits. They're allowed to lose up to $39 million over 3 years, or $13 million per season. Across that same 3-year cycle, Leicester City spent 2 seasons in the Premier League and 1 in the Championship, which meant their permitted losses should have capped at $83 million. However, the Premier League stated they had exceeded that limit by $20.8 million. Leicester pushed back, arguing they should have been judged under the $105 million allowance given to clubs that spent all 3 years in the Premier League. That claim didn't hold up. An independent panel rejected it and, in February 2026, handed the club a 6-point deduction. By then, Leicester were already back in the Championship and searching for yet another manager, their 6th in just 4 years. They had just dismissed Martí Cifuentes, who had only been appointed right before pre-season. Even that decision reflected deeper issues, as his arrival had been delayed, so the cost of sacking his predecessor, Ruud van Nistelrooy, could be pushed into the next set of financial accounts. With the season slipping away, Leicester found themselves in another relegation fight, this time in the Championship. Once again, decisions came too late. It felt like a repeat of the 2022-23 campaign, where poor form was allowed to drift until it was beyond saving. When the January transfer window opened, instead of bringing in experienced players who could handle the pressure, the club opted for youth. Talents like Devine Wrench and Omari Hutchinson arrived from top academies, full of potential but lacking the kind of experience needed for a survival battle. They walked into a dressing room that was already fractured. Some players had wanted to leave but couldn't, while others were already planning their exit in the summer. The result was a squad with little cohesion and even less leadership. Supporters, frustrated by years of decline, won't lose much sleep over many of the outgoing names. Relegation, combined with a major drop in income, now forces a complete reset. The squad will have to be torn apart and rebuilt, all while the club makes deep financial cuts across every department. There has been some progress. The wage-to-revenue ratio has dropped from a staggering 116% to around 81%, but that still isn't enough. In EFL League One, it will need to fall even further, likely by another 20%. That means promising young players like Ben Nelson, Abdul Fatawu, and possibly others will have to be sold to balance the books. Those who stay will almost certainly see their wages reduced again through relegation clauses. With the financial damage of going down, a squad overhaul on the horizon, and a growing disconnect between the club and its fans, the challenge ahead is massive. Rebuilding trust will take more than just results on the pitch. It will require stability, smarter decisions, and a clear direction. Right now, beyond the anger and frustration, there's a deeper feeling that lingers among supporters. It's not just disappointment, it's sadness. A story that once inspired the football world has slowly unraveled, turning what was the most magical underdog triumph in English football into something far more difficult to watch. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing to Kickoff FC. It's your place for sharp football stories, deep analysis, and everything happening across the game that truly matters.